So again, my name is Scott Ryan. I'm the principal for the Beaverton Early Childhood Center. And Beaverton Early Childhood Center is spearheading the Caregiver Connection activity this year as a pilot program to better connect our families and caregivers to different resources. I'm fortunate enough today to have Carlos and Anna. They're going to be our foreign language translators and interpreters. Also with me today is Megan Snow. She's a family resource specialist with Northwest Regional ESD, as well as Holly, one of our speech and language pathologists. All right, Megan, I'll go ahead and pass it over to the two of you.
All right, thank you. Like Scott said, my name is Megan Snow Simpkin, and I am here to talk about advocacy in special education and medical settings. And I'm wondering, for those of you here, if you are comfortable putting your child's age and where you think you might use the information from this presentation, where you are anticipating advocacy might come up for you, if you have a sense of that going into this presentation. And as you enter those responses, I will just talk a little bit about some areas where you might want to consider using advocacy skills, including childcare settings, special education settings, medical settings, and regular education settings. So we can go to the next slide. So one thing that I wanted to start with was the idea of separating urgent from non-urgent issues. And as a parent, I had a hard time with this because I was like thinking, when it's your own child, everything seems urgent. Everything seems very important. Like, I want to address this right now. And this bullet point is to encourage you to think about some of the dynamics of what you are asking for, what you are advocating for with your child in the various settings you might find yourself in. So whether it be an educational versus medical need, differentiating those and just determining, where is this advocacy going to be most effective? Understanding whether it's something about your child's health, safety, or comfort might bump up the need for that sense of importance and needing to get it taken care of more quickly. So, and it's okay to call your providers, be persistent, have someone help determine how urgent something is within the care that they're receiving, where it fits within the scope of the larger picture for your child. So part of this bullet point is really just a stop and reflect to consider some of the dynamics within the needs that you have for your child. Gathering information is the next bullet point. Thinking about gathering a short version, having it written down, having some points in your phone that you'd like to address in the meeting in a phone call with the provider. So whether that's the school or a medical provider, coming with a focused idea of what your ask is can be really an effective way to get to what you need more smoothly. And one thing that I put under this is a one-pager, and this is, we're still on the last page. This is a page that summarizes information about your child. So this would be something you could use, gathering of information about your child. And if you want to click on the link here, you can gather information about your child and share that with new providers, so that they have a sense of what your child's preferences are. What are the strengths that your child brings to the environment? What do they love? What are they working on? What doesn't work? And even a vision statement. What is your child, striving for? What are you striving for in your child's education or medical situation? And these can be a really good advocacy tool in terms of helping people see your child for more than just a deficit, for seeing your child for a whole person, and having that kind of in a quick summary that you can update yearly or, as often as seems relevant for you. So we'll pop over to the next slide. As you probably are already becoming, you can become an expert in your child's condition. So you're already an expert in your child, and knowing that you have the ability to document at your provider meetings, at your medical appointments, information about what it is that your child is working on, things that have worked for your child, such as different therapies or medications or goals that have worked or haven't worked, methods that have worked or not worked for your child. And to share that with a future team to help let them know what is going to be the most effective. Even advocating for goal areas that you'd like to be addressed, thinking in advance. I really think that tying his shoes is important. That's something that we can work on. And maybe the team will say, that's appropriate at this time. Maybe the team will say, that's not appropriate at this time. But if you have that idea to ask and advocate for that, you can work with your team to design a plan that is really meaningful for your child's stage of development. Also pulling together a trusted team of friends, teachers, therapists. And while you do that, knowing that there's always going to be turnover and change year to year, which can be emotionally challenging. And sometimes mismatches happen, which can be emotionally challenging. And it's important to know who to turn to if something makes you uncomfortable, if something doesn't seem right to you, if the plan isn't being followed. Knowing who your point people are within the system can be really effective as well. So keeping those business cards you get, getting down people's names and emails when you have meetings is another way to practice that advocacy. So the next point reflects back a little bit on that idea of what is urgent and non-urgent. And it has to do with prioritizing, thinking about, what needs to happen first? Is there a sequence to what needs to happen in order to help my child be successful, or in order for their plan to be implemented appropriately? And thinking about who and what needs to be in place, and then advocating for those things that need to happen first. So just again, taking a step back and thinking about, what are the foundational components to what I'm wanting to advocate for. This next point is be assertive, but avoid the blame game. So it's so easy in systems for us to turn to the system or the provider or the, whoever it might be, and wonder if, kind of whose fault is this? And when successful advocacy comes when folks are able to keep the emotionality at bay to be the best advocate. And having your talking points in writing can help you focus on the task at hand, and can help focus and temper the emotionality that you might feel arising if you have, if there is one of those mismatches that I talked about, if there is a challenge that has been ongoing for a little while and you're starting to feel frustrated, continuing to advocate and being, having that assertiveness while also maintaining the relationships can be just another thing to keep in mind. Effective types of communication, if we can look in there. So this has a few different ideas about how you can communicate your ideas. And so letters, that's a very personal way, maybe a little old-fashioned, but also very personal. I think people pay attention if you write a letter because it's not very common. Email is practical and efficient. Social media, I know some people use that for advocacy in like the broader sense of, advocating for, autism awareness or, different causes that are going to support their child in that way. And sometimes just making a telephone call can be a way to make a personal touch. Having a scheduled time to, scheduling something via email where you have a scheduled phone call or a scheduled face-to-face meeting can be a great way to meet with teachers or medical providers. Sharing the advocate role, knowing that you don't need to be in this alone. You can cast a wide net of people who care about your child, who can support you across settings. And also getting help when conflict arises, knowing your team, who to talk to, how needs are being addressed. Even gathering documentation, pre-planning by keeping accurate records of IEPs, IFSPs, keeping records of school calls, who's calling, when you're calling to or from, getting a call from school. And again, just getting those business cards or those names and contact details of the key players in your child's medical or educational life. Organizing your records can be really overwhelming, and it can be really helpful to help meetings be more productive at times. So for example, if you're at an annual meeting where you're deciding on your child's plan, like the IEP or the IFSP, you might bring the past progress report that you have, or you might bring the past plan that you have. Those will be on record with the school as well. Some people like to have a hard copy of things to reference. So knowing your own style is important with this point. Also, having a calendar system with, your dates of when your appointments are, and you can look back and see who you saw when, can also be a way to help you when you're reporting on the history for your child when you're just initiating services. Again, I wanted to touch on the point of nurturing relationships, being thoughtful about how you're fostering relationships with teachers, with staff, with providers, presuming everyone's doing their best and working from the heart to support you and your child. And engaging in active listening can be very effective. It can be effective. I think when it becomes challenging, if you're not feeling heard yourself, it can become challenging to be an active listener. And so recognizing that dynamic of, am I being heard or am I not being heard? And having those points that you're trying to talk about that you'd like to revisit, actively listening to the person, the provider who's talking, and then revisiting, well, yes, and these are the points that I'm wanting to address today. Can we address those points? Is another way to kind of direct that. Some good summaries are, there's this first one is 5 steps to being a great advocate. The only thing I don't like about this is that it says opponent on the top. I'd like you to replace that word with audience. Know your audience. Knowing who has the ability to give you what you need. What is the personality of the person you're dealing with or working with? My computer just glitched, I'm sorry. So again, being an expert on your child, being creative, knowing that you have all the answers, and starting, knowing that you have the solution that you're looking for and working backwards from there. How can we work backwards and find a solution that'll be agreeable for all parties? Communicating efficiently and being prepared to compromise, sometimes lose a little bit of what you're asking for, sometimes feeling upset, even if it's behind the scenes, often exercising patience, and knowing that it's taken a long time to learn about your child. You've had many years with them, or several years with them, and you're the expert on them. So helping someone else with grace and patience. And then the educational advocacy is something that if you're interested, I could email to you. I don't think that we can read it right now. But it has some really great summary of the early intervention program and then the school age program. So if you're interested in having that emailed to you, you can drop your email in the chat and I can email all these handouts to you. All right. So in terms of your rights in the educational setting, once your child qualifies for services, you will have an annual meeting, and at each of those meetings, you should receive your procedural safeguards, also known as your parent rights. If they're not offered and you want a refresher, you can ask for them. I would read them over, skim them at least once. It's not an exciting read, but it is an important read just so that you know what your rights are. And one of the things that I like to highlight from there is that an IFSP or IEP meeting can be held at any time to review, update, or consider potential changes to your child's plan. It's just a matter of initiating that with your child service coordinator. So that is a right that you have. And then this website here has some great question and answer on procedural safeguards. So from the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, there are you can see the different plus signs. If we scroll down just a little bit, those are all the topic areas, and there's some great information on there that you can search. Right, some resources to be aware of if you need support in your child's educational journey or their medical journey. Fact Oregon is one that can offer support on the IEP or IFSP. Their phone number is listed here. Disability Rights Oregon is another organization that can support you in advocacy efforts and help with education around rights in special education. These other two are, I would encourage you to look up if you're not familiar with them. Center for Appropriate Dispute Resolution in Special Education. That's if things get to a more elevated level and you want support resolving a dispute. And Center for Parent Information and Resources. So that website is down there on at the bottom of the page. I believe that is our last slide. So I'd like to open it up to questions if anyone has questions they'd like addressed right now.
Great. Well, if there aren't any more questions or anything else to add, I'd like to say thank you to our presenters, as well as to our interpreters, as well as our support staff. Again, this will be emailed out in a video link format to the Northwest Regional ESD YouTube website, so you can go back and review this video and see the links that Megan has provided, as well as see the other caregiver connection activities that have been presented this school year. So however you celebrate this beautiful winter season, I hope that you have a wonderful break, and we look forward to serving you again in 2024. Thank you, everyone.